What's up, everybody? And welcome back to another album reaction. This makes what? 350? Probably album reactions. I don't know. We've done a lot. We got my buddy Glenn in the chat, which is the lead singer. Well, he's pretty much the lead singer of Isolated Antagonist, which is a industrial slash cyber slash dystopian band that was created by Glenn Mitchell and Nate Gradowski. I'll let him introduce himself to you guys. This is going to be the second album we check by this band. If you want to see the bio of the band, you can watch it on the first album. But I'll let Glenn have the floor.
Glenn Mitchell. We started this project probably about 2014, 2015. I was actually I was deployed in the Middle East, and we thought it'd be interesting to see if we could try to record an album or even songs with one of us in Massachusetts and one of us in the Middle East. So all the original vocals for the first album were recorded in my barracks.
I did not know that. That's sick.
I think you've heard the demo. So we had a couple songs that we threw together to see if we could even do it, and then we decided to turn it into an album. And as we were writing the first album, we decided to actually turn it into a concept album. And after that, we decided to make all of our albums part of the same concept, so they're all part of the same story. I have slacked and even started a book, haven't finished it, and was working to try and get a couple comic books made in the process.
So I noticed that with your with the creation of your band, I know that it was very, very Fear Factory inspired band, and I noticed that a lot of the instrumentals are very inspired by Queensryche. And I've interviewed both you and Nate, and both of you talked about Queensryche and Fear Factory on a whole as some of your biggest influences for this band. And now we get to show the audience what Isolated Antagonist is. This is the second album, correct? That's the second album? Third album, excuse me. So this is the third album. So this is the most recent, correct?
Most recent full album. It's the third album, but it's technically the prequel to the first two albums, story-wise.
Okay, so the first was the Isolated and the Antagonist. So we haven't done the first one yet. But we did Affirmation
of
Entropy.
My mix was so bad, so it always drove me nuts.
That's like me with fucking astral projection, dude. Yeah, I feel that. The first one's always gonna be rough because you're still learning to produce. So
it was there. Yeah, the volume was such a big issue. We didn't notice it till later on when we did the final master, and then you're listening to it live, and you're like, "Oh gosh, this is really quiet."
Is there anything you want to say to the audience before we begin, brother?
We went through a lot with this album. There's actually a change in record label ownerships. So we had finished the album honestly a year before, but they told us to hold back on the release because they weren't ready to do anything with the distribution, advertising, or anything. So we held off and decided to rework a lot of it. And in part of that reworks, we always thought the bass was just a little lacking. And I ended up reaching out, or I should say, I ended up seeing that Christian, ex-Fear Factory bassist, was looking to help other bands out and raise some funds for what he was doing. And we were able to hire him to do the bass tracks for the album. And I thought it really added a huge punch to the sound. And I also found that a couple of our big fans actually found us because of just that small little advertisement.
Yeah.
And that record label was awful for the release of this album because they ended up screwing up all the advertisements and not doing any digital distribution, which is what they were supposed to. So we ended up having to redo all the digital distribution ourselves, which really screwed up our advertising because we had no idea when the album was even going to be released.
Wow, man. So the fact that you got Christian on this album, how did you guys even start talking?
Yeah, I think I was a fan on Facebook, and I just saw him advertising something, and I reached out, and I originally thought, hey, one or two songs would be cool. We ended up doing one or two songs, and then I said, screw it, I don't care. How about we just do the whole album? And he said, yeah. And went back and forth. We only had one song that took us, Nate and I, a ton of time to mix, just to find that perfect mix, which is hilarious because it's the title track. we went back and forth with that mix over and over and over again. That was the final song that received the mix, just because we were trying to get that perfect sound for it. And it was kind of funny after that. Christian was working with a couple other bands, having some trouble doing file shares and whatnot. He was actually asking me to help and host some of the files and redirect people to different places for their albums that he was helping with. And you know me, I'm a nerd, so I'm good at that stuff.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the album that was inspired by your. I don't mean to bring this up. I know you hate talking about this. This is about your friend's death, correct? You guys wrote this
So,
album for that?
honestly, I didn't write. She passed after we recorded this album, but I wanted to dedicate it to her, and we took all the profits from the album and donated it to cancer research, because she passed from cancer due to multiple deployments.
Man.
And it was, I think, a little bit before this that Nate and I got into the point of
Fire
I mean,
pits, I'm guessing? Fire pit stuff?
fire pits and everything.
Yeah.
So we've been donating profits from albums before this. So the first album, we were just trying to figure out, but the second album, this album, and singles, and even collabs I've done with other people, we've just made sure to donate the profits to different charities. So this is just my side gig. You know me, I've retired from one job, still have 2 other jobs. I do well, so I just take anything I make from music and donate it to a different charity, whatever either is part of the collab or rings true to that point in time. So this album was done like a Kickstarter with that record label. Again, it's very odd, and part of that was we got everybody's name in there that contributed, and put a picture of Krim in there. Yeah, there's some rough sides to that story, so stay out of that one.
One thing that the audience should know, now that I got you in here in the chat, is Glenn is my very first patron. I created a Patreon. I didn't think anybody was gonna join, like anybody. I just created it just to create it, and him and Alex and Charles and a lot of the other patrons, they have really helped me build this channel and the Patreon to be the most, what's the word I'm looking for, the most engaging an audience, because we've added features in there, we've added avatars, we've added Patreon request examples, but the fact that this dude just like watched one of my videos and he's like, hey, yeah, did you start a Patreon? I was like, he's actually inspired me to start Patreon. He's like, you should start a Patreon. I was like, why? I don't have any fans. I got like 100 subscribers. He's like, you gotta start somewhere. I was like, you're not wrong. So, and
you had more subscribers than that. It was your Patreon had nothing. And yeah. I think I said to you, because you were still building, I said to you, no one's gonna sign on if you don't have any subscribers to Patreon. So I'm gonna be your first, and let's start it up.
And then there's been ups and downs as far as that end, where I was taking on too much, dude. I was taking on like 3 Patreon requests per person, and that was rough, dude. So we finally just started to limit it, and he's been a huge part of this empire. He is an admin and a mod in my Twitch streams and also in Discord. So yeah, he's definitely one of the most persons I trust out of my whole community. So shout out goes to him again. Thanks for being here, brother. Let's begin this shit. The full discography of Isolated Antagonist is as follows: The Isolated and the Antagonist, Affirmation of Entropy, and finally Oblivion. Without further ado, the first track is Open My Eyes.
The day everything was supposed to start. My life, the beginning, the challenge, the everything.
That's wild. That's really cool. And then you guys move next to each other? That's cool.
was a physical thing. I grabbed at all that was left in front of me. One sweet acrid smell. That dream, that life was gone. Feel the warmth before my eyes even open.
Ooh. It's got more of a Queensryche vibe in it compared to the last album.
Everything had changed. And now, I have to open my eyes to what's left in front of me.
A little flight violin in the background.
I have to open my eyes.
Wake up. Post-apocalyptic. Pretty cool, man. I like this police siren you guys added in there. Cool with the pan. The snare could use some more beef on it, but the rest of it sounds good. I don't like the snare drum. Well, you definitely got the automation correctly. It creates that space in the ears. All right, we're gonna talk about it. So the like I said, the drums they're very lacking on the snare. The rest of them are good, but the snare is just it's
Oh, I
very
absolutely agree.
very narrow, dude. It's very narrow. It's missing that depth, and there's no reverb on it, and it's just I don't know. Like I said, my first album sounded like shit. So, but normally whenever you create albums, it's a learning process, and there's artists that will take off of they'll take off their albums from the past so that way people can't see their evolution. They'll just leave the good stuff on there. But I appreciate the artists that leave the bad stuff on there, or not really, the lacking stuff. Not bad is a terrible word to say, but the stuff that's lacking to show their progression, to show the evolution, but it's decent. It's decent. I like the automation. The guitar's good on it. The guitar could use a little bit more space on it. The vocals, I think that the vocals have too much of a width on them. But other than that, it's pretty good. I liked it so far.
Oh, it was a fun track to do. The fact that it was just two of us making this and having fun, it was mind-boggling to me that we could get it there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, dude, that you did this, long distance. That's really
Sorry,
cool.
this one was not done long distance.
I'm sorry. The one before that was long distance.
So
but...
the first album was done 100% with me in the Middle East. Half of the second album in the Middle East. The rest of the second album done at home. This album was done after I'd actually injured myself. So at one point I had tore all the ligaments in my leg doing some in my ankle doing some training for the military.
Mhm.
So doctor's orders were no walking, no working, no driving for 5 weeks. So I basically didn't leave my third floor apartment that did not have an elevator for 5 weeks because I couldn't walk.
Wow. That's crazy. So you had to have someone bring you stuff and like for food and stuff. Crazy.
The wife took care of me. She's amazing, and I had friends would drop by. I'd literally have to throw my keys out the window so they could come up in the house because it was a interesting neighborhood to live in, to say the least.
That's one thing for the single people out there. If you get married, make sure you marry the right person. Make sure you marry your best friend, because if you don't marry your best friend, then you're gonna have a hell of a time getting through a relationship, man. My wife is also my best friend too. I can't wait for you to meet her, man. I'm really hoping that we can make our way up there whenever we're over in Virginia and maybe have dinner together or something as a double date or some shit. And yeah,
I have got to have actual dinner with A Dark Halo.
With his wife, or
yeah, she came too.
That's sick, dude. That's awesome, man. Yeah.
My wife and his wife. I've been married
Dave?
21 years.
Yeah, Dave, right?